Big day today in terms of Newspoll and the result it is showing. This is not good reading for Labor. It will give some momentum to Peter Dutton and his team as we reach the end of the year. So let's go through the number and what's behind it as well and what it says about some of the recent trends. So 50-50 first of all, that's the state right now. 2% swing towards the coalition in terms of what's driving that right now. In the last Newspoll, the change in primary vote for Labor has been most stark. So when we look at that, the primary vote will be a concern here for Labor. As we bring that up, you can see Labor's lost 4 percentage points from this poll compared to the last one alone. So the coalition going up briefly, or a small amount, 1% to 38. But that's the big news there, Labor losing 4%. What about its primary vote and the recent story, just not of this poll, but over the past few years? Let's go back to the 2019 election, 33.34%. That's a pretty low primary result in terms of the history of the Labor Party, particularly if they're a chance of winning. 32.58, it actually dropped at the last election. This was a strange result for Labor to win, a very low primary, a lot of anger at Scott Morrison driving the result, and Labor getting help from the Greens as well as some help as well, and running dead in some of those Teal seats. So they always want more than that 32.58 at the next election to be assured of a win. Then you go December, Anthony Albanese riding high, 39%, down to 31% today. That's an 8 percentage point drop from that high. That's 1.4 million registered Australian voters saying they will no longer vote for Labor. So that's a concern, a huge shedding in terms of their support. And the 2PP since the election is also an interesting one to look at. There's the election result, 52.13. You can see through July and September, very much a honeymoon period for Labor. But even up until April, this is nearly a year later, 56%. That's a significant increase. At that point, things began to get tougher. We did see cost of living and interest rates start to be sheeted home at that point. And of course, the referendum campaign was on in earnest. So we see 54 to October. Even at that point, Labor's holding on pretty well. This is around the time of the referendum. Then you get a big drop to 52% in November, the first half of it, and then today 50%. So even since October, that's a really quick drop off in support in just 1 month for Labor. We're still here in November. How does that compare then to Scott Morrison and his journey? You know, is this a problem for Labor as much as it was for the coalition? Pretty different journey for Scott Morrison. This was his surprise election win, May 2019. This was July, soon after, the bump up of support that you generally always get in Australian politics after winning an election. Then we get 48%, a big drop off. We had the Black Saturday bushfires, of course. We had him in Hawaii. So that was a huge drop off, slightly worse than Anthony Albanese. But while Anthony Albanese was 4 percentage points in that 1 month period, this is 5 over quite a longer period of time. So this does speak to Anthony Albanese having a big and quick drop-off. We see him recovered here. What happened? COVID. The nation felt like initially the coalition were handling it pretty well. And 50-50 in these two. Have a look where we're at. August 2020, June 2021. So as much as we look back on the Morrison government as being really unpopular, this was a whole year where they managed to hold on to neutral territory, 50-50 two-party preferred. Once we had, of course, things getting closer to the election, we had a summer, of course, without rapid antigens. We had a lack of vaccine and a poor rollout there. Then we're getting to 44 towards the Liberal Party and 56 Labor, and then recovering to 47. But you can see the drop-off to support there for Morrison, 53 to 50, July to August. That's similar to Anthony Albanese. So that will be a bit of a concern how quick the drop-off has been under Anthony Albanese in that two-party preferred. Better PM. This is an interesting measure because we very rarely see the incumbent anything other than winning, but it does give a demonstration here how much this is closed. Again, this is just after the election, 60 to sort of low 20s to Peter Dutton. The grey line is uncommitted. Again, up until this April period, April 2023, this is when things get worse for Anthony Albanese and Labor across the board. From this period on, we see it narrowing here. Anthony Albanese in the 40s. We're seeing Peter Dutton up into the 30s, about a 10 percentage point gap there at the moment. As to the performance of the two leaders in that time as well, I'm actually going to show you Peter Dutton first. We can see he starts off negative at -4. He's -19 by April, and we see Labor still going well, but then gets worse. -20, -18, -13. So he's very low there throughout. He's got much less popular in terms of his performance since that election, and he's at -13. So some of the lines out there today, well, they can't win at that. He's got to improve, surely, if they're a chance. Let's look at Anthony Albanese. And I'll show you, first of all, his popularity just before the last election. April 2022, -14, and then May, again, just before the election, minus 14, minus 11. This is the territory Peter Dutton's in. You don't have to be popular as an opposition leader to win, whether you're Labor or Liberal. We saw him soaring high soon afterwards. Again, the electoral victory made him look good, 35%. He hung on pretty well for a whole year, July to July there, 22 to 23, 11%. Then he's gone down steadily. Neutral here, minus 10, minus 13. Again, a big drop-off in just 1 month there. That'll be the concern, how quickly that has happened. And what about playing out this swing overall, 2% or so, on a uniform basis at the next election? We'd see Labor go from 78 right now, remembering they won Aston, down to 72. What this says is a couple of things. First of all, Labor, something needs help, obviously, from the crossbench to stay in power. Do they get 4 Greens? Do they want to be another Greens-Labor government? Can they peel off some Teals, or perhaps more likely, go for some of those more left-leaning independents? It's tricky, though. For the coalition, I think this is interesting on a couple of points. First of all, they're still only on 63. That's because quite a few of their seats, they want to win are beyond 2%. They're sort of 3 to 4%. So this says they need a bigger swing. And also, we're assuming they don't win any of these Teal seats. If they win some of them back, that equation gets better. Can they do it? Can they win 3 or 4, and then be on 67 and only need another % or 2? Maybe. But it does show it's an uphill battle for the LNP to turn around how bad that performance was at the last election.